everybody, in today's video I'm going to tell you the top 5 mistakes that people make when trying to lose fat. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Spencer and I create content for gals like you to become the best version of themselves and just really enjoy the life that they're creating. Just a quick note, I am going to be mentioning weight loss, calories, restriction, and some topics that might be sensitive to people with a history of disordered eating. So feel free to click off now if you feel like this might be unproductive to you and your personal journey. Number 1 is doing way too much too quickly. When we start setting exciting goals like losing weight, we can really easily start to imagine this new version of ourselves, and it's so easy to get carried away and want it to happen as soon as humanly possible. Somebody might start their fitness journey with the best intentions of the world, saying, I'm gonna go to the gym 7 times a week, or I'm gonna completely cut out carbs. While the intentions are so great, the way you're doing it might not be the most sustainable. Instead, aim for something that you can make a much more realistic and consistent part of your schedule. So for example, if you can only go to the gym 2 to 3 times a week, that is absolutely fine. Number 2 is focusing way too much on cardio. There is a massive misconception that if you want to lose weight, you have to do hours and hours of cardio. I don't know where this came from, but it's simply not the case. While yes, incorporating cardio into your fitness routine is beneficial for many different reasons, it is not the be all and end all of fat loss. The main reason I don't agree with the idea that you have to do hours of cardio in order to lose fat is what happens when you actually look at what's needed to lose fat. Being in a caloric deficit is the best way to lose body fat. Calories translate to energy, so essentially you're giving your body less energy than it needs to just sit and be happy. So with this, cardio doesn't actually burn as many calories as a lot of people thinks it does, which I wish it does, but unfortunately, unless you're gonna go like run a marathon, the idea of burning off the calories you ate, it doesn't really work in the same way you'd think it was. It's not really a direct translation. So like the effort to reward ratio just isn't really at a place where I would say it's worth it for me personally. I don't know about you, but cardio like absolutely exhausts me, and it also makes me super hungry. Because then when I come back from the gym, I'm more likely to eat a lot more than I would have if I just hadn't done the cardio in the first place. Does that make sense? So again, I'm not saying don't do cardio, I'm just saying don't rely on cardio for fat loss. Number 3 is thinking that exercise or going to the gym is the only or main way to lose fat. As I touched on in the last point, in order to actually lose fat, you need to be in a caloric deficit. I've heard the term saying like abs are built in the kitchen, not in the gym, and I think that's so important to think about, because while yes, doing exercise is great because it builds muscle, it does wonders for your cardiovascular health. In the same way, you could really just do absolutely no exercise whatsoever and eat slightly underneath your maintenance calories and your body would lose fat. Gym is really great for a variety of reasons, but it's not the main way that you will really see the results of trying to lose fat. Now, I'm gonna make a completely separate video on calorie deficits and how to be in one, my tips and tricks, because I've done quite a few of them. So stay tuned for that coming up soon. Number 4 is over restriction or cutting out certain food groups. For me, the only reason that I would be cutting out an entire food group or certain foods entirely is if I have an allergic reaction or a severe intolerance. Psychologically, restriction puts us in a position where we're far more likely to binge on those foods that we've cut out of our diet at some point in the future than if we were just to have them in small bits in moderation. This is why I don't agree with these fad diets that we see where it's like massive restriction. I find that these fad diets often have a timeline, and it works really well when you're in these diets, but then when you try to navigate regular life after the diet, it's really difficult because suddenly you're met with foods that you haven't had in months and it's like, oh my gosh, I need it. Fat loss does not need to be overly restrictive. You can still eat the foods you enjoy and the foods that you love and the foods that sometimes can be deemed naughty, which I really disagree with labeling foods as good or bad. Food is food. Yes, certain foods have different nutritional values, but the idea that a food is good and bad is just bonkers to me. But anywho, again, that's for another video. I still eat the foods that I like, but if I'm in a calorie deficit, I just eat slightly less of them. Like I still have Oreos. I've got them in my cupboard right now and I'm in a cut because life is meant to be enjoyed. So enjoy the foods you like in moderation. When I've been in calorie deficits and fat loss phases, the main reason I've been able to stay consistent in them is because I've been able to eat the foods that I enjoy and I don't feel overly restricted and I don't feel like I've been put in a box and I can still like enjoy my life. Number 5 is paying way too much attention to the number on the scale. Firstly, I want to just quickly talk about the idea of fat versus weight, because a lot of people say I want to lose weight, but what they really mean is I want to lose fat, because weight is like the overall weight you have, including your bones, your muscles, your fat, your organs, everything. That is weight. Whereas fat is just fat. So firstly, there's actually two different types of fat. There's visceral fat and then there's subcutaneous fat. Visceral fat is the fat that lives internally and is in between your organs and is often seen as the most dangerous type of fat to have, whereas subcutaneous fat is the fat that's actually visible on your body's surface. When I talked about the number on the scale and why you shouldn't really pay too much attention to it, the number that you'll see on the scale is dependent on literally so many different variables. Water retention, so how much water you've had, how much you've actually weed out. When was your last bowel movement? How much food have you eaten? If you have periods, where are you in your cycle? Because that affects how our body stores onto fat and water. Not every scale is the same. So for example, I could weigh like 2 or 3 kg heavier on a scale at home than I would in maybe the scale that's in your house, just because the scales are calibrated differently. So if you are weighing yourself in many different places, you might get a different number, but your body actually hasn't changed at all. I do think it can be beneficial to have that number to see a trend going downwards or upwards in terms of your overall weight. Another way of just tracking your progress rather than the be all and end all. When I said before the number on the scale includes your muscle mass, this is really important because if you are actively building loads and loads of muscle, the number that you may have in your head of where your ideal body weight would be might be very different than what you'd think it would be. Okay, I'm gonna put up on the screen 2 different photos of where I weighed the exact same amount, but I looked completely different. The reason for this is because my body composition was very different. So in this photo, I had a much higher body fat percentage and a lot less muscle. Whereas in this photo, I had a much lower body fat percentage, but a lot more muscle. So this is exactly why like the number on the scale doesn't mean everything. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about anything I spoke about today, please just drop a comment or message me on Instagram. I am more than happy to discuss further. Or if you want to see me make more videos like this or have content that you'd like to see in the future, again, please just let me know. So I hope you have a great day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I will see you in the next video. I love you. Goodbye!